So with that being said, I would like to introduce to you a person that I've admired for years with all the books that she's authored and her knowledge, and also a good friend and a co-author of the book that I handed out last week, Anna Graf Williams. And Anna is very, very knowledgeable about the workforce, about working with employers, about what you need to know to put resumes together. So listen closely to some of the skills that she identifies that you need to identify for yourself. Also some of the tips that she gives you that employers are looking for. Because, you know, anytime we pick up a resume book, it says something a little bit different. But I can tell you, Anna is out there in the fields working with professionals day in and day out, so she gets the up-close insights and facts. And we also appreciate her working with me so that we could have the ability with the grant money I received to get the books and get the resume program that you will have. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Well, let's start at the beginning. We're going to spend time today talking about career portfolios. So the first thing we're going to do is the big picture on career portfolios. Then we're going to progress through work samples, because work samples are kind of the center of the universe as you go about getting everything put together, whether we're going to do a hard copy portfolio or an electronic portfolio. The next thing we'll take a look at is actually the how-tos inside the software. Now, we are working with Diana Wyatt as a co-author on this project for the knowledge that she brings to us from the industry partners that she's reached out to, and because of the number of you who already have some industry relationships. She brings to us a research base that has allowed us to link into some specialty areas like how do you use your industry experience to get life skill credit at a university, which I know several of you have reached out to do that. And if you haven't done it now, it may turn around to be something you choose to do in 5 or 10 years as you go out advancing your career. You actually have a chapter in your books that gives you the framework for doing that. So as you go forward, you're going to find when you look through creating your career portfolio at a glance guide for professionals, all the how-tos for putting together a portfolio. This is kind of like the recipe book. Now, we have a section in there on how to do a bio. We have a section in there on resumes. And Diana has explained to you very clearly, for every color there is in the rainbow, that's how many opinions times 10 there are on resumes. I don't care what you want to do with your resume. All you have to understand is you need to customize it every time you target an employer. Every single time. And you have to understand that if you're wise, it's going to represent your competencies and your skills when you go about giving it to someone for your performance appraisals as well. There are formats for military and government resumes, and there are formats for chronological and anything else you want. But you just have to relax and understand that you can always look those pieces up, but if it doesn't accurately represent who you are, it's not going to do you any good. Questions are fair game. We'll try not to be boring. So we'll go through and give you just a few of the reasons why you use a portfolio. A new job, well, that's a give me, right? Everybody's with me on that. Coming in and using it for a promotion is the next thing. Unless, of course, you're all expecting to stay in the same position forever. Any of you? None of you? Good. The other thing you have to realize is after you've gone through new job, promotion, you need to be anticipating that you're going to have performance appraisals along the way. And industry has changed very much in the last 3 to 5 years how they do that, and they're using top grading. So they're out here and you thought, oh, when I got out of school, I got out of being graded. Sorry. They're going to take a look at you and they're going to say, did you have a plan for progressing your career? Or did you just react to what was going on around you? And they actually have a very scheduled rubrics, a very scheduled schema. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, they're going to look and say, do you have a plan for advancing your career? Portfolios are that planning tool that represents that, but it's also something you put in your head. It's like, oh wow, I did all this. And we'll talk a little bit about how that organizes. And then, of course, as we talked about, the structure for earning college credit.
And I know all of you are aware of the structure for college credit for universities, but there is the one chapter in here that will give you additional ideas on how to identify your experiential knowledge and be able to take that knowledge and incorporate that in your portfolio. So the portfolio we're talking about more or less is a lifetime tool. It's a self-assessment tool that be able to see this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be, and this is where I want to be. And again, it helps with the planning. We have many, many resources and worksheets within the book that will help you assess yourself and also help you in compiling your tools for the portfolio. So the career transition tool, I know many of you are in the phase where you're leaving one particular career, transferring to another, whether it's your choice or you're doing this because of a downsizing, right-sizing, business closure. This portfolio is going to help you within that transition. So it's an investment in you, it's all about you, and as we discuss some of the tools within the portfolio, think about how this impacts me as an individual and how will this work for me.
It's also your way of controlling your life. I'm a control freak, so I kind of like to control my own destiny. And things have changed in the workforce. It used to be employers would put before you things that would guide your professional development. It's significantly changed in the last 5 to 7 years, let alone where we are these last 3 economically, where you are responsible for your own professional development. The structure for a career portfolio that we put before you is something that we have actually had in place now for well over 17 years. In our work with the Department of Labor and with large Fortune 500 companies as well as smaller organizations, the difference between a scrapbook, which is like all the nice things I've done, and being able to do a presentation that says, oh, take a look at me, here are my goals and my philosophy and my structured way for presenting to you my competencies and how this all fits into a plan, is the ability to show you up here, here's my management philosophy, and then here's my professional goals. Now these are the things I want to achieve in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but also here are the 2 or 3 components that align to the company I'm targeting. So if you're sitting here and you're applying to 3 different organizations, I would expect you have customized your personal goals to align to the direction that company may be going. So if you're here in the greater Champaign-Urbana area and you say, I'm going to go to work for, or you are in the state of Illinois and I'm going to go to work for, then you should be looking up the annual report, the mission and goals of that organization, and if sustainability has come up, in other words, they're interested in green and saving energy, then you better have a professional development goal that aligns to that. The other thing you better take a look to is if cost control or revenue progression is in there, you need to also be looking at those same things. Every single organization is going to evaluate you on how well you grow leadership. How well are you growing the leaders around you? The difference between being at the bottom of the food chain and moving your way up is, are you growing leaders, making the company money, saving the company money, and improving the guest or client relationship? And you need to be demonstrating this in your work samples and demonstrating this in your goals and philosophy as you talk to these points.
And as we go through this, we're going to look at these individually, but I want you to think about when we're looking at the work samples, when we're looking at community service professional memberships, if you do not have all of this at the present time, be thinking about how could I obtain this, or what else do I have that might be relevant that would be of value to include in a work sample. So while we show you some samples here, think about how you can individualize this to your particular situation, because everybody has work that is of value, and we'll be talking about those soft skills. So don't panic right away and say, oh, I don't have good examples of work skills.
But we will
Yes,
let you
do.
panic. It's okay. No, we're kidding. Well, I think what Diana is also trying to get you to realize is, stop and take a look for a moment. You may be going into a field that you're going, well, I can't really relate the fact that I've come out of manufacturing and now I am going totally across the board and I'm now going into being a medical tech. They're not related. How do I relate those skills? Well, two things. One, we'll show you in the software how you literally can go side by side and compare skills and go, oh, it's a transferable skill in terms of financial analysis to financial analysis. Oh, the soft skills of dealing with people here is the same as dealing with people there. We'll talk about what's transferable. And I think that's what we're really saying. But also understanding strategically where the building blocks are. I supervise so many people here. Supervision of staff is the supervision of staff. And it works over here. One of the things we also have that we're going to talk to is going to be, as we come down this list from resume, and I'm going to come back in a moment to work samples, is community service. Everybody tends to either blow off or step aside and not know what to do with their community service because, you know, you have a tender heart, you do things in the community because it makes you feel good and you want to, not realizing that that is an excellent arena for quantifying skills. You should, as you are sitting here trying to gain experience in your field, actually put a plan together and contract in your vertical and say, I'm working on my accounting skills. I'd like to volunteer with your organization and contract for 40 to 60 hours, giving you so many a week, and do something along these lines for you, and I'm looking in return for a letter of documentation. And then you have something quantifiable to take to an employer, or you have something quantifiable that will give you not only those technical skills being documented, but some of the warm fuzzy skills of what you've been able to do that contributes back economically in the community. Am I making sense here along those lines? Especially as we go into these times of year. Of course, in my opinion, it's always the right time of year, but then I'm soft about these things. But we'll come back and we'll talk, because you can actually acquire your technical skills, but it's a great place to shop for your transferable skills. Soft skills, leadership skills in particular. Community service is also a place, besides leadership skills, I want you to be aware that we will talk about where does your military service go. because there's a very prominent place for that. We have built into the software the crosswalks so that your military and civilian skills can talk the same language and everybody can understand each other. Even when you know military speak, we know the civilians don't always understand that, so we have to decode it for them, and you can get that going. Professional memberships. Why would I put professional memberships in here? 2 reasons.
I'll go with first.
Tell them.
It shows your employer, when you have a professional membership, that you're looking at the position you're in as a career, not just a job. It shows that you're investing in this area, that you have interest in this area, and the professional memberships are your proof for that kind of accountability.
It also is a great way, after you've exhausted out their line item on the budget for how much they can give you for pay, to turn around and say, now that you've given me, and I realize this, what you can on salary, I'd like you to pay for my professional memberships and conference attendance on professional development. And it gives you some soft benefits to go on to negotiate, because you've got evidence and proof of history of having been a member of an organization and having been active in that organization. So it's a whole lot easier having shown them the pattern, even if it was as a student member, to stepping it up than it is to go from ground zero and say, well, I need to be a member of this and I need to be a member of that, because they're going to turn around and say, well, why weren't you before? Everybody with me? Degrees, certificates, awards, and references. Why would I put an award in that's 5, 10, or 15 years old? The difference between a portfolio being a scrapbook and being a portfolio is purpose. An award that shows citizenship, achievement, leadership is always appropriate. They don't age out. Your character should not have changed in the 10 or 15 years from when you first earned that particular award. Now, degrees, you worked hard to earn them. They're not heavy to carry, and they can't take them away from you. I would make sure I put that proof right there. References, and we'll show you these here momentarily. Make sure that on the references, especially in this day of top grading, and this is your great opportunity. We have come through an era over the last 10 years where a reference, all they can do for you is have the HR department say, oh, Mary Smith worked here from this date to this date and she left in good standing. That's not a reference. We need a reference who can address your character, your traits, your abilities. It will be your job to get the permission of that individual to talk to those details. So when you put a reference list forward, you need to also put a tagline on the bottom that addresses what can they talk about. They can address my leadership skills from 2008 to 2011. They can talk about my, and fill in the blank. Let's take them on a tour and show them.
Also with this, you want to educate your references by supplying them with your resume and any documentation that's relevant to what they're going to speak to, so that they can make informed statements on here. We're going to show you some examples.
We'll take you through the walking tour and then we'll come back and bounce you through to the reference. So first, let's look at management philosophy. The person we're going to tour you on is Jason Adams. He's in his mid-30s. He's a welder. He's an Army reservist here in the state of Illinois. And what's interesting about Jason is he's in pursuit of his RN for a trauma nurse. So here you have his 4 bullet points about his management philosophy. Trust me, took him a lot longer to think about this than it did to write the 4 sentences. In your book, you get the how-tos. We even go so far as to say it won't hurt you to get a friend or an enemy who will tell you the truth and give you some feedback. You can't sit and do this in a vacuum. And he talks to the point of what he believes. This is his personal mission statement, his thoughts on the industry, and what he believes about the patient. So, and we can go on, but this is for you to explore. Now let's take a look at, as you go through the big picture here, the bio. And there are several different formats. You can have a short, a medium, and a large bio. Trust me, when the HR department does your bio, it never quite sounds like you. I'm back to being this control freak. I like to write my own. And so you would want to do the same. But he gives, this is a brief one, short and sweet, overview of background, key points, educational highlights, and then what he wants his portfolio to show somebody as he keys through this when he shares these details. Same thing for you. Your book talks to the different formats of doing that bio. Okay? Professional goals. Remember, your core plus whatever you're customizing to your target. Gone are the days where one resume, one portfolio fits all. So his goals, his BS in nursing, trauma nurse or life flight trauma nurse upon graduation, then he wants to pursue a master's degree. He customizes 2 more bullets for the target, because this fits into his educational portfolio. He has 2 sub-bullets depending on who he's targeting when he finishes this out. Y'all with me?
And remember, it's important to identify those goals because employers are looking for individuals who have goals, who've accomplished their goals, that are trainable and that have ambition, looking forward to doing their best. It's very important for you to let your current employer and your future employer know what your goals are.
Let's pause for a quick moment. Let me take a breath and talk about top grading. Top grading is where they take a look at you in the interview process and maintain it throughout your performance appraisal review, identifying if you're going to be promotable. They are looking at you to say, I'm going to bring you in, you'll cost me this much to train, and I have analyzed you for what your competencies are. I have looked at your strengths, where you made your mistakes, how you were with relationships, and if you made your moves strategically. If you made a mistake, did you have, or if you made a choice that didn't strategically advance you, was there a reason? Let me give you an example. If I have a man or a woman who took a pause in their career, what was the reason? Stopped to raise a family and get more education. Stayed in this position because they had a spouse who had an illness. What was the reason that kept somebody in that particular position instead of advancing by title or skills? Stayed in this position because the company was transitioning and expanding, and my duties expanded even though my title did not. And I can show you how my duties expanded. Are you following with me as I'm sharing this with you? Because those are the types of things that should be revealed. Those are the types of things that show up as we go through resume, which we will talk about, and as we go through the structuring of work samples. Let's look at community service. Here Jason shows us he happens to use photos, his newspaper articles, and captions. You gotta love a cell phone. Now they're taking such high resolution, but there's so many great SLR cameras. Folks, you just have to put your thinking cap on, and we will talk here momentarily about work samples with a plan. We all get caught up in our own little world, and we just have to pause and look at what's measurable. You will find in the back of your book, we have a couple sections. They include a list of transferable skills. So if you're trying to think of what might transferable skills be, you might shop through this list just to jog your brain. You should also go a little further and take a look at the action verbs as they are organized by the professional categories. I'm in medical, I'm in manufacturing, I'm in business. Here's the leadership ones. Just so you begin to think a bit more so that you can anticipate where might I have a measurable moment, as we call it in the business.
Along with that, think about activities that you're involved in. Don't wait for a picture to be taken of you. You have your camera. Make this a teachable moment. Take a picture. If you're in a training, get the group together. Let's have a group picture. Think of ways you could document your activities. Don't wait for the paper. If there is a picture, but you're not exactly in the picture, then write about what role you played in that picture. Tell the story.
And you're documenting things like cooperative skills, leadership skills. You catch my drift here, and we're going to go through some of those examples here in a moment. Professional memberships, here is a component. Now, good time to have a discussion. We've talked collateral portfolios, we're talking electronic, we're going to talk resumes with links to work samples. Many folks think, I'll just design a website and put my work samples on it. Well, I'd like to share with you a word of caution. The good side of that is you have control. The bad side is that we love Google, I really do. Everybody can bot it, Google it, search it, and when you're putting things like professional memberships up here, you want to think and be conscious of identity theft. And so truly your work samples and your personal private information belongs on a private network. You don't send future employers your work samples. You send them a link to a work sample so that you are always controlling it. Your privacy matters. Most folks who are managing professional memberships are no longer using Social Security numbers, etc., but we don't want to take a chance. Are you with me? Does this make sense? I'm into privacy, as you all should be in your awareness. Same thing goes with certificates and degrees. You'll see his EMT license, his other cards and providers here. The same thing would go for you. We good?
So you want to make sure and guard this information so that no one else can lift it and have a license that you've worked hard to have on there.
Everybody with me? All right, awards. And because of his military service, Jason has quite a few, and this only scrapes the surface. We've only shown you a couple here. It is appropriate. Many of you are so humble, you are hesitant, and these got put away or these didn't get saved, and now you're going, I didn't keep them. That's usually the first words out of your mouth. I didn't save these. I don't have this. It would be worth your while to see if you can reach back in time and acquire this. Those of you with military service, you usually can get your hands on these. It just requires a little sweat equity. Those of you in other organizations, it's worth reaching back and seeing if someone will assist you in creating those or recreating them.
And it's also worth, remember, anytime from this point forward that you receive an award, a certificate, documentation of any kind, to keep that. And make sure that you do have documentation so that if you need it further down the line, anytime you want to update your resume or your portfolio, you have that readily available.
Okay. we're going to talk about, the two things happen with the portfolio. One is, even if you never show it to anybody, the process of doing this has you going, oh my God, I did all this? Really? I can do this? This is me? You'd be surprised, because we know from the research as we work with employers, they offer more in starting salaries because your ability to document and articulate your knowledge, skills, abilities, use of tools and technologies is so much more proficient that you interview in both job seeking and performance appraisals differently. You're humble, but your confidence carries because you know in detail what you can do.
You want to grab the sample there of the portfolio?
Oh, yes.
The other thing, what she's speaking of, is when employers ask those behavior-based questions.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever had a time? Can you explain a situation you were in? Tell me about your portfolio. Not only, as Anna said, the process of putting that together helps prepare you mentally for the interview. The portfolio itself is proof that this actually happened. And so employers like to see that evidence there in a resume. Remember, your portfolio is a tool for you, not the HR person. It's helping to prepare you for that interview. The resume gets you the interview, the portfolio gets you the position or the upgrade during your evaluation. It's your proof.
Now, I've skated around two things. You keep seeing on the master list, and we'll go up here to a QR code in a minute, you keep seeing work samples by category. What do we mean by that? All of you sitting in here have a target position. Within those target positions are competency categories. If you're sitting in here, for instance, and you're going to be a general manager of a hotel, you're going to have a category of specialty, I guarantee you, on cost control and analysis. You're going to have a category of specialty that's going to have to deal with customer service. And you're going to have a category, I promise you, that deals with supervision. Now, we also know that most of you have a rare talent category that you're bringing or drawing upon, usually, especially if you've been employed at least 5 to 10 years, which I can look around the room and see that we have those type of individuals here, and you need to anticipate a specialty area as you go forward. That's when I have folks, and I'll give this example. I have an individual who's come out of the field of software development, and he wants to be a project manager, and his target career is project management. So he is working to promote his competencies, and his target is project management as his core competencies. His rare talent area is software programming. Those of you who are transitioning, I have an RN who is career shifting into the field of dietetics. Her core competencies are dietetics. Her rare talent field is nursing. Are you with me on this? Same thing will work for you. We'll talk more about the categories, how they build.
Bonnie, did you have a quick question?
I do have a question since she's talking about experience. Because what about if you're at the other end of the spectrum when you have limited work experience, if you only have it like in one area, but you could apply to maybe to get a little more out of it, but if you're limited in the work field, what are some ways?
This is the question I hear you asking. Audit me if I have the question correctly. What do you do if you have limited or no work experience? How do you frame your core skill areas when you are building a resume or building a portfolio? You still build it around the target position, and then we're going to talk here in a moment about reverse engineering a job. The way you would do that is you would seek out the model job position. So when I grow up, I'd actually, if I'm going to career shift, my next career shift would be to be a neurologist. That's actually what I'd like to do next. Been a little busy in my current job and I love what I do, but my next thing I'd like to be is a neurologist. So I would need to look up the model job position for a neurologist, identify the competency categories, and I would use my rare talent area of educational administration. I have several, but that's probably the one I think it's going to help me the most because I already have a lot of brain research background and that's what trips my trigger. And I would go in and identify what skills and competencies I need, what education I need to be able to go out and be a practicing, researching neurologist. Same thing would be for you. And as a matter of fact, that's a perfect lead-in, and we'll be getting to that shortly. The software you have access to does gap analysis. So each and every one of you is going to have this electronic bucket. You're going to pour in your education, pour in any formal training, pour in any work experience, however robust or initial you have, and then you're going to know how much coursework, how much additional experience you need to get to be whatever this is. Be it a neurologist, be it an RN, be it a general manager of a hotel, whatever you say that target career position is. So, perfect question.
And I hope you're seeing a common thread through all of this discussion, that it is very vital that you're able to identify those skills, those competencies that you now have to help you in this transition. That's the bottom line. That's that foundation. You're going to be building on those skills that you have. And you do have them.
And to help you do that, we have in your book a series of templates. And these templates will help you do your management philosophy, your goals, some resume management, including your career planning tool and some of the rest. Now, on page 109 in your book is the QR code, and I'm going to borrow your book. And so we can go to page 109, provided we can see. That's always the test. And you all have a QR code. How many of you have a smartphone? How many of you have a dumb phone? Okay, well, those of you with the dumb phone, you can just type in the URL address. Those of you with a smartphone, all you need to have is a barcode scanning app, and it doesn't, any of the freebies will do it for you. The question becomes if you can make the buttons on your phone work. And then you just line up and get the box to hit the mark, and then what comes up is your address. On the phone, I can open the browser or save this as an email and send it to my desktop, or open it right here, and then I'm going to get a choice, it's loading now, of whether I want to download these as .docs, DOCs, or .docs, DOCXs, and then I literally get the list of all of these, including the fact that you are going to get a list of file management for some suggested organization for saving. And oops, I guess if you turn the phone upside down, it turns the thing upside down. Don't go by me. You just fill out your name and download what you need, folks, and there you have it. But we wanted to make it as easy as we could for you to get the templates. No sense making it hard. Look, 3 steps I call for tech support, so trust me, we have to keep it simple.
The other thing to keep in mind with the URL address is at the end of HTTP, there's an S on it.
Yes.
So make sure that you include that S, because this is a private network.
It's secure.
And you need that. It's very secure.
We want to be sure you know that it's coming off a secure server and that your data is secure, and that's the whole component part of that.
So these will be the tools that you'll have to help you in developing the portfolio. And again, the key is organization and making sure you're saving these properly.
And I would say to each and every one of you, if you don't know where to start with the collection of work samples and the career planning tool that's on here. So you've got the Microsoft Word templates, which are available to download, and you've got the work philosophy, all the checklists, the statement of originality. We've just gone over that. The gory details are linked in your book. We don't need to spend any more time on that. You can handle that. I trust your ability to read.
The other resources that are shown up here are the other 3 books that are geared to students, student portfolios, dietitians, because Anna's work within that area, and then the professional portfolios, which just about covers everybody, because no matter what field you're in, you need a portfolio to represent who you are. You can find a lot of these resources too on the website that's on the back of the book, and additional tools from the website for you. These are all available to
We've
you.
sold over 250,000 copies of the student book, so somebody must think we have something to offer in that field. So let's move on and show you a few more resources with this. As you go through developing portfolios, we want you to understand there is a reason to do both a hard copy portfolio and an electronic one. A hard copy portfolio is used face-to-face. You use it to answer a question. You use it to respond to someone and to do show and tell. You use it to wrap up and summarize. If you're going for an interview, you've alerted them via a cover letter that you're bringing it. When you are going in on a performance appraisal, you tell them 6 weeks in advance.
Do you know why you tell them ahead? So they have time to review it, because many times they're preparing that appraisal well before your meeting. So you want to give them time to look at your portfolio, kind of digest what's in there before they actually complete that appraisal for you, because there are probably documents in that portfolio that they have no idea that you've accomplished. This is your proof, this is your ability to make a difference when it comes time for your appraisal. And so get it to them ahead of time. Just don't walk in that day and put it on the table, because your appraisal has already been completed at that point in time.
You know how reviews go. They remember the last 6 weeks of what you've done and every mistake you've made in the last year. You need them to remember accomplishments and achievements along the way. And so you're working to identify growth professionally and contribution. So this helps you do that. Your architecture under goals then reads more like your key achievement areas, okay? So when you're coming through on hard copy, we've got 2 things to talk about here, and this becomes my favorite latest tool. Yes, I have great technology partners. I am smart enough to surround myself with people who are tremendously technology savvy. However, more than 3 steps, I call for help. We all clear on this? That's how I work. Now, I'm not the person you have scan anything. Is that clear? I'm not necessarily good at it, but I have found a couple tools that even I can handle. This is a scanner. All I have to do is push the button, turn it on, take the paper on a flat surface, not in the air, and go about that fast, and it's scanned. It is the coolest thing, and I don't have a problem. And then I take this little cable over here. You don't have to have sound effects like that. I plug one into the scanner, one into my laptop, and then I just pull it in. It is so cool. Now, why do I care? This is why I care. Because I need to have electronic copies at approximately 200 to 300 DPIs, and I need to have items I'm putting on the web at about 72 DPIs. Because if it's too big a file, too high a resolution, it's going to be a problem moving around in cyberspace. And the smaller and more concise, the better off we are.
And even when you have the collateral copy of your portfolio, you still need professional looking documents. So the scanning
Absolutely.
is still important in the hard copy.
And I think you all realize that in this day and age, most organizations are on a scan and shred universe anyway. And if you haven't reached out to be able to self-manage your world to some degree in scanning, you need to get yourself some tools that work for you. I don't care what model, what brand, but there are a couple universal things that make sense. Small size documents and not be blowing out their email accounts, etc. Does that make sense? So, we owe the world that kind of courtesy as we go forward. But on the electronic side of things, those are pre-screening tools. Everybody looking at your portfolios in an electronic format, those are not page turners. Those are Googleable. Is that a word?
It is now.
We go in and we want to search for component and we want to look for, or they're working from a specific checklist and I want to see, what do you have listed for your soft skills? What do you have listed that check you off of my keyword search components? So we're going through in those ways. Typically too, the pass around factor on the electronic ones are higher, but they're oftentimes e-portfolios are used between the first and the second interview. So you made it through hurdle 1, now you're into hurdle 2. We now know that they are interviewing a lot less people. Used to be to fill one position, they would interview 7 to 10 people. They now interview 2 to 3, but they interview them 3 to 4 times as opposed to 2 to 3 times. So they've upped the number, but they interview less. But they still, the data comes back that they're screening more people. So you have to find a way to get something of substantial quality that's measurable out there in front of them with more bang for the buck quicker.
That's one of the words, quality. You want to make sure when you're using an e-portfolio that it works, that everything works. Because you don't want to have them click on a link and not be able to get to what you want to show as your skills, especially if you've identified technical skills as your area of expertise.
That's my favorite.
Identify good work samples, make sure it works, make sure that they can get to it quickly and it works quickly for them. So you need to do some investigation too before you send them that link, what type of technology they have on their end, so that they do have the software or the program that is able to open that. That's why PDF files are excellent.
Mm-hmm. They can always download a free viewer.
Next.
Mm-hmm. My favorite thing that we share with you is the career planning tool. If I could just pour something that's easy into your heads, this would be it. You can reverse engineer this, you can forward engineer this. This is easy. If you go out and you go on a hunting mission and you say, okay, I'm going to collect every work sample I have that I can think of, and I'm going to put them all in one place. Here's my USB drive, it has everything. Here's a box. It has everything hard, whatever, picture, paper, everything, it's here. I got it. Whew. And now you come over to this paper and you've got this map, and you, by the way, have this as a template.
Right.
And you have this as a template, and one of them is labeled target position, also known as when I grow up I want to be.
And Anna, this helps when we refer to that question that you asked earlier. This is a tool that's going to help you in that transition.
Exactly. So you plug in and you say, I want to be a lodging general manager. So you would ideally go to a job description. If you can get an internal job posting, they usually have more details. If you have to go to an external one, like on Monster or one of the other big job boards, or directly to a corporate website, so be it.
America's Career Information System has them on there.
Yes. Then you come in and you look through what they have for technical skills, what they list for soft skills, what they're listing, and you'll see technical, you'll see system skills, you'll see specialized skills, and you begin to write down what the skill is. So at the top you'll see we have categories. Here's a category called customer service. Here's a category called revenue. Here's a category called telecommunications. This individual must have a rare talent category in marketing. Now we see this individual listed under community service, and you've just got a snapshot, but we go down the list here and we see that under customer service, the actual competency is develop SOPs, standard operating procedures. And the documentation are hotel procedures for 2010. That's what he's showing as a work sample. Y'all tracking with me on this? Now, if this is a 942-page document, he or she may only offer the table of contents and then say full document available upon request. Question?
If you work in a security-related field, most of those SOPs are
Private.
protected and private. So, I mean, I have two jobs with that instance with SOPs and cannot present that work sample because of that. So what else do you use to prove that?
Good question. In the case where you have signed a non-disclose or a non-compete document, you may share templates that are non-disclosing of the organization, especially if it's something you've created. The other way around that is to solicit a letter of documentation from the employer that is a sign-off on skill sets. Many employers are willing to sign off when you say, has the ability to, or I would like to have, given the proprietary nature here. And you can do that in the form of a letter. Or you can do that in the form of saying, I appreciate that I'm in this role, and whether you're low in the food chain or high, but that's typically how that's done.
And this is just one example. There may be another example that you could pull in that might be just as strong as an example to use that's more readily available to you.
Usually more detailed than this is what they would want to sign off on. They usually don't sign off on general lists. They usually sign off on usually 2 or 3 layer steps would be what I'm familiar with them quantifying.
So I want everyone to understand this is one example. So think about how this would work for you. You may have different areas up here, different competencies. Of course you're going to have different rare talent because all of you are individuals, but this is an excellent example of how to sit down and do this based on the tools that we have in the book. And that can be downloaded there.
And
it's going to take time.
Yes.
You're going to have questions.
And you can start at the bottom and plug your work samples in and then map the competencies. Or you can start with the competencies and go, what work samples do I have to document the competencies? But in the end, when you're sitting there trying to apply for a job, this is what top grading looks at. I am looking for a general manager who's demonstrating competencies in customer service, cost control and revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And we do this for every profession. Are you with me on this? So it isn't some secret society that HR lives in or the person conducting the performance appraisal lives in. There is structure. Then they add another layer of performance, which is when you were in the revenue category, did you perform and make us money at this level? Did you grow your competencies and make us money? So just so you understand, not that there's any pressure here, what the science of advancing a career really is.
And if you're self-employed, that would be an area to show how you grew your company, developed the company. Next.
Yes?
the self-employment aspect, how detailed do you get with that demonstration of growth?
They will look at you and they will identify what your strategic progression was. And your growth can be in skills, in brand, and in revenue.
And an increased customer base.
Yes. So you have to determine what your outcomes were in your own assessment of growth. But it is wise for them to fall into the typical categories of management. Does that help answer your question? Okay. I want to just brain tease you for a moment on work samples, because work samples are the center of the universe, as you can tell by the role they play in career planning, because they're the proof and the evidence. A lot of folks say, I didn't save anything, I don't know what to do. They come from class projects, they come from community service, they come from what you're doing at work. You just have to look at what's the proof. Some of you live in a very physical world that doesn't as easily translate to a document like this. Okay, and we realize that. Those of you in the physical world, like Jason here of welding, you're more the kind of individual who gets a sign off on competencies. Or you have photos of things in action, and we know that. So, with work samples, you would reverse engineer a job description to identify the competencies. We've just spoken to that. You would use prototypes when an original would give away something that's confidential.
And
Go ahead.
confidential, I mean, that just speaks common sense, that you cannot include a document that has confidential information about either an additional employee, a student, a patient. You must get permission to use that. So you may, as Anna indicated before, use a template, use a dummy up template for that documentation. You may have that employer write that this particular skill is documented in this certain way, but because of confidentiality, cannot share this. The other way of doing it, especially with soft skills, is that it requires a third-party documentation. So it's one thing to say, I have leadership skills, but how are you going to document that in a portfolio? So if you have a third-party documentation that says, Joe Smith is a leader in, example is, by coaching, my mentoring with students, was involved in this particular activity, examples that are approved by a third-party documentation. It could be something as simple as a thank you letter or a letter from a customer saying thank you for handling this. So think about what types of third-party documentation do I need to collect to show my soft skills.
We actually give you an example in the book of how to solicit a letter of documentation, because you're going to wind up asking for someone to, could you please address my leadership skills, my da-da-da-da-da. As a matter of fact, this would be a really good shopping list to go through in case you don't know what kinds of skills you might need proven. We'll start at the left here. Coordination, instructing, negotiating, persuading, service orientation, and social perceptiveness. That was a lot. Have you ever met someone who is not socially perceptive? That front desk clerk who just can't see that you're dragging your bags, you're tired and you're hungry, and it's the end of the day in the middle of the night and you need to have a cart. That one? Ever met that person? I have. They don't do so well with social soft skills. Rate them low.
The other's instructing. You may say, I'm not an instructor, I'm not a teacher, but in all positions, you may be instructing or training a coworker. So you have those instructing skills, teaching others, whether it be retail, whether it be the health field, you have your own business, you're training employees, you have instructing skills, whether it's coaching and mentoring. Gain from those skills, identify those skills.
Remember me saying to you, all organizations are looking for your ability to grow leadership, save money, make money, and improve guest or customer client relations. Those, besides the money part, the first and the last one hit on the soft skill categories here. And as you look through those, this center category, resource management. How good are you at managing time? Resources, people. You know, some of us just, hopefully none of you in the room, but we know those individuals who just can't get it right. Then we come up here and we look at managing one's own time and the time of others.
So there again, if you're in a business and you're scheduling, or if you're a supervisor and you're scheduling, that's one of those skills that we're talking about. So think about everything you do daily and know that that is a valuable skill that another employer will be looking at.
Oh, I have one particular team member, and as we work, my challenge becomes that that individual cannot accurately estimate time. Have you ever asked someone to estimate the time it'll take on a project? I see all your heads nodding. That is a soft skill. Time management truly becomes a quantifiable skill that affects success. We know, and I will tell you how concretely this is. As I talk to employers, they will take people who have good soft skills because they believe they can train on the technical skill side. They will take a volunteer with a C over a non-volunteer with an A because they believe there are better soft skills intact. Are you watching where this is? That doesn't mean you have permission to get C's. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Here's how you do this. Mark, everybody goes, where do I start? And they hold their head and they go, ah. Here's how you do this. Pull it together. Make an appointment with yourself for 30 minutes. It won't be painful. Get a cup of coffee or a glass of milk and cookies. Turn the phone off. Turn off the television and the GPS. And get to where you can access your electronic world and that infamous collection box. And once a month, go through the calendar and look at everything you turned in. And look at the meetings you had and double check. In the classes you have now, what did you turn in? And think employer through the employer's eyes. What's an industry work sample? They don't care about the history of Napoleon, and they don't care about your bronze baby shoes. But they do care about a writing sample that parallels something that shows the same kind of skills they need in industry.
Some of the examples could be working in your group projects, the presentations that you need to give for classroom work. Now, if it's a presentation, it's a group presentation, what role did you play in that project? What was your responsibility is what they want to know. So you do have work samples. It's just going to take time to identify them, pull them together, and make this a routine so that each time you have a training or each time you're involved in an activity, then you again think, how's this going to help me in the future? How am I going to use this for documentation to maintain my portfolio with that? The other thing when we're talking about this is tells you how to pull this together. Check your calendar, get on a routine. There's going to be times when you might need that portfolio in an emergency and it's not exactly where you want it to be. In your book, in Chapter 9, talks about how to put together an emergency portfolio. So we hope by doing this, there's not those times that you have those emergency situations, but it does happen, and we do have some clues here to help you get through that situation.
If your work samples are organized, you can get it together in a pretty timely manner. If you don't have your work samples organized and classified, good luck with that.
And did we have the directory up here, or did we not do that?
We do. It's living in another place.
Okay. Good enough.
I
There it
cannot
is.
reveal our secrets.
That was my walk-in right there.
That was.
Anna mentioned before that this is actually on the templates,
Yes.
a way to organize your
We shared
computer
this.
to save your work documents. So if you don't have your own style, this is here for you with the folders. I want to caution you, one thing when we're talking about your work samples, be careful of how you name them. Make sure when you name the work samples, you understand by reading the name what that sample is. And be careful, for instance, that you're not naming resume. You wouldn't know which resume to open up. So have some titles for those documents, for those folders that you understand.
Here, let me jump in and help you a little further. So you would, let's do your bio. It's going to be sent to somebody else. So you have to look at it through somebody else's eyes. So you would at least use your initials, AGW, bio, November 2011. You with me? You'd have some nomenclature that wasn't nutso, or you'd use your last name, first initials, a date, and if we got a work sample and it's community service and it was Red Cross health walk, you'd put your initials and the date. Are you with me here? You don't become wacko on me. And if it has been saved at 72 DPI because it's a photo, you'd put a -72. If you've got one that's camera ready copy, you put dash whatever the high resolution is. Are you with me with all the information you put on that title? But it's much important because you don't have time in the 3-hour emergency instructions to be opening every document. But if you do this right and spend just a little bit of time thinking, 90% thought, 10% action, when you begin to load these into the software, this is going to go fast, because if you look at these names, these are just types of work sample categories. As you get to know the things you do, let's take Jason in nursing. He's got work sample categories from being in Afghanistan and from him being an EMT. So under the categories of PowerPoint, where am I? PowerPoint. He's going to have under PowerPoint presentations, probably most likely he will categorize by his competencies because he knows his competencies. So he'll put some subdirectories in there. You with me? And then you're going to go, oh man, this is getting easy.
And the one thing too that I want to stress upon is we always say make sure you back this up.
Oh.
But also make sure you back this up on a different computer. So save it to your flash drive, or if you have an account in the clouds, wherever, make sure if you're saving it to your computer, laptop, that it is backed up elsewhere. Because that's going to save you a tremendous amount of work when you see that blue screen pop up there, that you know your work is safe with that.
Plus, everything you've loaded into the software is backed up. You still want to have it in your own universe, but everything you load into the CES software is on a mainframe and is on a backup recovery system. But being the control mongers we all are, say yes, I want to make sure I can use this and manipulate it when I need it in another arena.
So now
This would be a good place. This would be a good place for us to take a 10-minute break, run around, get some fresh air, and come back, because then we're going to go through and talk software. Okay? Thank you, folks.
You're going to receive a password, a username and password.
You're going to receive a login, and you'll send that in and get your passwords all back.
To be able to use this system. And so she's going to walk you through all the screens. I could kind of do the PowerPoint for you, Anna. And she'll walk you through the screens on how to use this resume system, and I think you'll be impressed. You will have this system available to you for 2 years. And then after the 2 years, it's available to you for
$10 a year because, excuse me, I know better. My mother brought me up better than to sit down and talk to you. Diana, because she's a co-author, has been able to secure you renewal fee at $10 a year. It's normally $29 a year to renew.
Yeah.
So special kudos to Diana for being able to get that for you.
Send me the difference.
Right now, as you take a look at the software package, what it is, the tools that are in here, the other thing she's gotten for all of you is all the upgrades. So as we add features into that enhance the way resumes come out or enhance the tools that allow you to do more features with ePortfolio, all of those things will also be accessible to you. Right now, if I had to give you anything that makes this probably, and you have to realize I have bias, okay? Because we did not, when we had the chance to jump in immediately with ePortfolios electronically, we paused because our biggest concern was to be sure that we were able to put it out here in a secure way. A lot of people came forward and there was a variety of movement that moved rapidly, and we wanted to be sure our applications are going to be accessible. We see applications moving so that you'll be able to get things uploaded from your phone more quickly by spring of next year and things like that. All of those features will work their merry way along and move much more rapidly than I can describe. Our tech team is fast and good. So those things are coming to you. But the fact it's secure, no matter where you go professionally, whether you are saving a file in the cloud or any place, you need to care that it's secure, and you need to care who owns the data, and you need to care how you get that data back out. Everything that goes in there belongs to you. Everything that is put into this database is private. Nothing is shared, nothing is sold. Those are the guarantees you have because you're part of this. Your chance to renew was at the deep discount because of your instructor. So if you have questions, she has the ability to access us. Our programmer will be available to also assist you when you guys are logging in 2 weeks.
Okay. The other thing that she mentioned, because I'm going to have her start walking you through the different steps here to use this program. The question last time we did this was, when you're putting this information in, do employers see this information? Because some of it is confidential. No. Again, Anna stressed, the only thing employers see is what you have sent to them on a private link. So they're not seeing the entire database. That entire database is your tool to help you, one, with some career assessment, and two, help you identify what plan you need, and then three, to help you produce several different resumes with that.
So let's begin at the beginning and talk about Career Express Suite. In summary, Career Express Suite is the software package that has the OAT, the Occupational Assessment Tool, the GAP, which is basically going to take the status of where you are and the target of what you want to be and tell you what education, training, and experience you need to get to here. And then you're also going to have a guided resume tool. And think of Career Express Suite as your electronic bucket that you're going to put everything into, and you're going to be able to dip out of it in an organized way. And that's my explanation. Any questions? Okay. All right, we'll do it in a more organized fashion. And again, as Diana has shared, keep in mind only the items you choose to share are seen by others. So when you send your resume out with links, that's what goes out. And if you want to create 583,000 resumes, you can. And that's totally an option for you, and you have the ability to do that. So we'll talk how to do that. So OAT basically is your personal piece. You're going to come in, you're going to click through the form, giving information that will include your educational, personal, and occupational data. You're going to also tell us as you go through and be able to link work samples. So that's the OAT document in a nutshell, and that's your beginning piece. Now here's the good news. You don't have to keep re-entering your name here and your name there and your name here. So, whew, thank you for saving me that keyboarding. Here's where we are at the beginning. On the OAT document at the top, that's your essential data. Name, rank, serial number, you all know how to do this. You fill that out and go click, poof, it populates. Then we go down to the next section here. Oops, can you go back one page for us, please? This is education, the highest level of education that you have. And if you are currently in pursuit of the bachelor's, that's what you would click in. If you have a master's and you're now getting a bachelor's, I would click the master's, because I know we might have someone in that situation. This category here of areas you've formally studied, that includes any areas of specialty you might have had in high school, as well as along the way, because that helps employers as we go forward in identifying focus areas. And we'll talk about that in GAP here in a minute. Experience. We want to quantify in measurable ways, not necessarily in the same career, your number of years of experience. If you've had 3 summers of 3 months, then they accumulate. If you've worked a year here, 2 years there, they accumulate. We also want to know the top position you've held in an organization. Again, we're wearing the lenses of industry, and we're balancing it with the lenses of education and the lenses of what we would have if we were in training. Because there are 3 things that get you to a job: education plus experience plus training. So that's what we're taking a snapshot of. Till we get, can we go back? Till we get down here to general. And general, if you're wondering, are basically job tax credits. And here in the state of Illinois, or we could be in Wisconsin, or we could be any place, there are various things that employers get advantages for hiring certain types of individuals. Let's start with veterans. Anybody who's coming out with certain classifications of veterans can be worth $6,000 to $5,000 a year for 2 consecutive years, depending on what specific classifications. Some counties, if you're in pursuit of a technology degree and you're a primary breadwinner, or you are a custodial guardian, you also qualify for certain job tax credits. So we take data from zip code, etc., and can share that feedback with you as we go forward. Now, after you fill out age, this is where the power of the database is. The software package you are using has over 7,000 jobs with full task analysis, skills, abilities, knowledge, all itemized in it. 7,000. So that means the core job is in there, as are the related job titles. So you might have been a waiter. You might have been a nuclear scientist. I haven't lately, but okay. So you come in here and this person has, this is Jason again, emergency room trauma nurse. So that's what he put in. He gets a list that comes up, and then he reads on the description to what most closely describes him, clicks accept, and that populates in. Y'all with me on this? It's a look up and plug and click. I think we can all do this. We go through that for education. We go through this for occupation. Same thing here. So he goes through the ID lookup for every occupation up to 5, and then his target occupation. What do I want to be? What's my target? I want to be a general manager. I want to be a vice president of operations. I want to be chief financial officer. I want to be, and then whatever your target is. Or if it's a part-time job, I'm looking for a waiter. I'm looking for a front desk clerk. I am looking for and put that target position in, because we have all job levels in the software from job zone 1, bottom of the food chain, to rocket scientist, top of the food chain, and all those in between. By the way, all of you coming out with baccalaureate degrees should be hitting job zone 3. That's why you're going to college. That's why I went to college. That's the gig. Now we got that done. Our next move is on to gap. We poured everything in. We're going to get a status report. This is where we are. Now I want to find out, what do I need to do? What's my prescription for getting to this point, because this is where I want to go. So lots of institutions as well as individuals want to know what those pieces are. So we're going to compare what we need between the target and identify the combined skills, training, and experience. So you're going to get an itemized list. Oh, you already have 6 months of experience in that specialty field out of the 2 years you may need. So you're going, whew, hooray, I'm partway there. So you kind of get a reality to what would an employer look at you and say. And boy, that helps in the big scheme. Oh, excuse me. One more thing. Your university has already gone forward and allowed us to put the entire course catalog into the software. Therefore, we have every single course crosswalked by the educational data. So we can compare Accounting 101 to what the correct work experience for Accounting 101 is, to what the military experience for Accounting 101 is. Better than that, we can compare your institution's accounting class to Harvard's institution, to Purdue's, to the University of Illinois, and we can go right down the list. What we have are CIP codes, which is basically the coding system. So everybody's, all these course codes. How in the world do we figure out this university's course code and compare it to that university's course code to that university's? Well, we don't have to. The universal language is CIP. So all the CIP data has been converted for your university, as we have for every university we have in the system. But there's a universal standard thanks to the Department of Education. And believe it or not, and I can't always say this, we actually have some interagency baselines that are crosswalked and work. So I'm very excited to report that. The Department of Labor's job standards and occupations, as they compare to the military standards, as they compare to educational standards. So that's what we've got here. Now let's talk about how you do gap. Put your name on the top line. Tell me what your target is. Can you do that? I want to have this, put the job title in. Now what's going to happen is, you're cool, you can go on, we're cool.
Never mind.
What's going to happen next is you're going to get a status. This is your status. And we're looking at Jason, so we know here that when we look, he wants to be a registered nurse. We know what he has: Army, ROTC, military science operations. We know how much of each, his criminal law background, and we know his experience. We know he comes out of welding, which he does. We know how many years, 12 years. We come across medical room and we've got his scorecard, so to speak. We now move over here, we know the target. He wants to be a registered nurse, associate's degree or other 2-year degree, and then we know the related work, where that is, and we know he's targeting a bachelor's degree. And he is lacking experience under the summary, and it tells us which code, which courses. He's missing his surgery, he's missing the podiatry part, and the psychiatric components, and we've got all of that. And it totals everything that he's missing. So we can look at this and get a snapshot, as will you with your gap analysis. Questions in the universe?
So you said, when will we use this again?
It'll come to you as soon as you get your data in, as soon as you put your work experience in. 2 weeks from now.
Our next face-to-face classroom.
2 weeks.
This is what we'll be doing.
I'm glad you're excited, though. That's a good sign. Okay. Whew. We've now gotten through 2 parts of the software. You've had a quick walkthrough of what occupational assessment is, short for OAT. You've had a quick tour of GAP. You can do GAP as many times as you want. In other words, you don't want to tell anybody, but your secret desire is to be a, and so you look up that one and put that in and go, well, what would happen? What do I have to do? And you could check that out. I've actually had people sit here and say, well, I know I'm majoring in this, but what would I have to do if I wanted to be a, and they plug in an imagine if. We don't mind however many times you want to do a GAP. We're fine by that. But if it changes your whole life, don't call me. You know, that's your deal.
We'll call Diana.
Yeah, you call Diana. Don't call Anna. Call Diana. Yeah, we got that all worked out. We're good. Okay, e-resume. E-resume is fun because with e-resume, what you've got to think here is it's guided. It is not a template. Templates are cookie cutter. Pour it in, it fits in this space or it doesn't. Pour it in, it fits in this space or it doesn't. No. You're dipping out of a bucket. You have everything in here. Now you're going to take this out with structure. Remember, you guys are the masters of your own universe. You understand classification. Your brains are working. You have no excuse. Ignorance, no more. That's gone. So now as you go through resumes, you get to choose styles. We've already talked about how many styles. We're going to give you 3 choices. That's where it is. We're going to give you some basic formats, but here's the good news. If you don't like it, pull it out, put it in Microsoft Word, and change it. You're adults, you can do that. The next thing is, as you come through, understand that the default format that you have is designed to expressly go into these job boards and search engines. We've tried to make this as accessible to what is being viewed by non-human reviewers, because in actuality, most cover letters are not read till you've made it through the pre-screening. They look at the keywords on the resume first. Then they'll look at a cover letter. You all with me on this? So let's take a look. 3 choices: chronological, functional, or a combination of skill. Now here, if you can't memorize that, you'll always get to read the definition, so we're not going to sweat this, okay? Make a choice and do a click. If you have 10 years or more experience, you really need to give serious consideration to chronological because of the nature of top grading, although a combination resume is also appropriate. Now Notice how small the font is? That's so that you can't spend too much time studying the details. This is big picture. Folks, name the resume, and don't call it resume 1. Okay? Not a good choice. I would name it for the position you're applying or the purpose of developing the resume. Internship with ARA mark, internship with Carl Clinic, internship with, and fill in the blank. Or waiting at and fill in whatever the response you are doing for the target. Or if this happens to be, as we have this being used in several universities, they are actually using this for assignments so that folks can gain experience applying for rotations in classes that give field experience. So you would be putting down your experience before you rotate it into a lab course, and you might have to submit a resume. So you title it, but you must fill out the target position you are going for, because the target position helps it frame many of the open areas we're going to need to fill out here. Second, notice it brought in your experience. Hello, I have all this experience. Now you get to choose, or these are the descriptions. Which of these am I going for? He wants to go in the field of nursing. Choose the one you want. Read the description, make your choice. That's the one you're going to focus on. Then you come down here, here's your background. He's got his education, he's got his group entries, and we'll go back and look at that, his occupations, and his training. He checked which ones he wants to include. He didn't want to put his welding on there. Okay? He's also making choices of which ones he wants to put samples on for.
Right here.
Looks pretty straightforward to me. Okay?
The one thing with loading those samples, it's as simple as loading an email attachment, uploading your sample here.
If I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. So now we come through and we've got the headers, and every single line you can edit. So here it says objective. You want that to say career objective? Click, click. Then I go in here and I type career. Or if I have more than 10 years experience, I might not want career objective, I might want career summary. Then I come in here and the default that filled in here was based on a registered nurse, because that was my target position, remember? Jason's going for a registered nurse's position. So this went in, looked up in our core database, and gave him for his career objective the model position description for registered nurse. Now, if he were a fool, he would have left it and it would say target position. Instead, he used this as a shopping list of skills and competencies and stepped over here and edited it, customized the objective, put it in his own language. By the way, we'll know if you're sleeping because the default will be here and we'll know that you weren't paying attention when you turn it in. You with me? We'll know you slept through it. I'm sorry, I told them how you're going to know if they're... Oh, well. Experience, you can edit every header. Y'all with me? I've had people say, well, I didn't know what to change. It just came out that way. Well, you snoozed through these pages. Okay? You come in here and you can edit everything. Planned, coordinated, and evaluated the training of Afghani medics. Do you think that exists in the database that way? It says in there verbatim, evaluated medics. He annotated and expanded this and attached work sample. Y'all with me on this? et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And is there a limit to how many work samples they could have in a resume?
You can attach as many work samples as you want, but you would be foolish to turn on more than 3. Because what will happen is they will get lost in the links. You only want 2, maybe 3 work samples that have bling. We know the scientific term bling, correct? Bling, that are super, that summarize, that pique curiosity, that have them going, ooh, I need to know more. The resume gets you the interview. The portfolio gets you the job. Now that I've seen just a little bit of the proof, oh my gosh, I've got to know more. Same thing with training, same thing with education. Up here would have been a document of a prior degree, an award that might have been associated with. Same thing with training. Activities, and we're going to go through, and I will show you groups and activities here, because most people wig out and forget about community service, and there's so much value in that for supplementing basic work, especially as we round out our characters. So I'm going to spend some time on those screens here in a moment. But when you come down this road, your richest part here is measurable language. Please go back to your book, because you say, well, I don't know how to, what would I title this? Well, folks, you weren't born under a rock. What task or job are you doing? If you weren't volunteering, would you be paid to do if you had to do it in real life? Is that so hard? You may be volunteering in a soup kitchen, but are you a line cook? You may be packing clothes out over the Christmas holidays, but are you managing in a retail setting? What are you doing? I mean, don't exaggerate, but frame it and think, because that is how you would do your fuzzy search to go in and identify correctly skills and abilities. Because the database has all of this in it. And we will have an additional tool to help you do this even more by spring. But for now, you should easily have that ability to go through. But when you're lost and not sure, don't forget to go through and shop through the action verbs on page 146 and 147. And because you folks get to keep your book, you have all of these items right before you, because a lot of times, you guys know fluffy language. Our parents used it on us all the time. I use it on my kids all the time. Non-measurable, you know. That's nice. Nice doesn't mean anything. Quality, concrete, things that you can, you know, progress up the competency scale. None of us wants a performance appraisal review that says, that's nice. We want something else. Let's take a look now at what the resume is.
Hit complete.
Yes, please. Here's Jason's full resume with his edited objective. Notice he did not let the target position statement stand. He has a summary of his experiences chronologically listed, and then we see the blue hyperlinks. He has 3 of them here. If we click, all of these are with relevant samples, because he's chosen to do a 1-pager. Now everybody's asking me, 1-pager, 2-pager. This is now a pretty big shift for us in the world of resume. 2 pages is acceptable, but what shows up here needs to have meat and not be padded and be substantial. So when we clicked on this, these were the 3 documents he chose to show. Why did he chose to show us his EMT card? because that particular credential is worth a lot of money if an employer has to pay for him to get that. So showing that he has it, any of you sitting in here with a food handler's permit, that in and of itself, showing that as a link, you're worth $300 immediately because you don't have to get one. They love it when you have that. So choosing wisely, in the case of some of the dietitians, being able to see immediately a sample of patient education, big, significant thing that catches their attention. Understanding if it's a keyword phrase they're emphasizing in a job ad, think and choose wisely. Is that something I need to target? Does this make sense?
Recommended length of a resume. I mean, I've seen some that are like 9 pages long.
No more than 2, 3 if you are someone who's been actively employed 15 or more years. But I would never exceed that. By then you need a portfolio. You should be listing competency areas.
It's not determined upon your profession, like an attorney, you know what I mean, that's been all over the world and done admin for
I have a
versus someone who's just been.
I have a Vita. My Vita is 26 pages and lists every publication, every paper I've delivered, and that's
Conference.
every conference I've spoken at. You can line a birdcage with it.
It's
very
completely different than a resume.
And it's not a resume. My resume is 2.5 pages, and I have a 2-page bio and I have a 2-paragraph bio. I mean, it depends on the purpose. But my Vita, which is literally every professional element of documentation in an academic arena, is a different gig. That doesn't count because you have to give it. That's a different world. A CV, curriculum vitae, is a different thing. Okay. Everybody with me? Resumes as newbies, 1 page is ideal. 2 pages if you've been in the job market 15 to 18 years. But it's skill-based. How you use the resume and get them to like you is all about your ability to persuade. Capturing their interest comes in the correct usage of those work samples. Top grading. Here's the visual snapshot of what we do with top grading. Look at what we're talking about, that they care. They want to know success, failure, relationships, and major decisions in your career. So when they look at your resume, they are looking at how your career progressed. They are looking at the rank of your job titles. They are looking at the growth of your skill competencies. And then they come across by skills, knowledge, abilities, tools, and technologies, and they are rating them by success. They're looking at gaps, and they will ask you questions about failures. They will want you to be able to talk to relationships, both good and bad. So have your answers ready. One of the common phrases being talked about right now is constructive conflict. Because many folks under the age of 30, 35 to 30 and under, if they don't like you, they defriend you. What needs to be happening and what employers are checking carefully for is that list we talked about earlier. When it comes to soft skills, how do you handle conflict? What do you do to embrace relationships, either subordinate, peer, or superiors when you need to? Military's cut and dry. Do as you're told. Stay in line, or else. We have some social shifts. We deal with generations at work. There's many things to understand and embrace. This is top graded. They will want to understand the major pivots in your career. Did you do it by choice or were you reacting? And they will ask. And they will glance at your resume and look for the patterns. How you present your competencies to show a pattern of growth, choice, or even as your career evolved, being able to say, I was in this industry, I love this industry, the industry timed out, it shifted, I needed to move into another area, and I'm getting to know and learning how to take my skills from here to here. You have to be able to talk to that point. That's what's real. And they are listening so that failure does not translate into anger. If they hear anger, they go like this. Back, back. No, I'm not hiring you. Okay. They will take a look so that you understand that the people who are analyzing you and frequently supervising you are not from your skill area. So you have to not only explain who you are, but make sure that they can assess and evaluate you. That's why portfolio. So that if I'm sitting here with a specialist in IT and he is being evaluated by someone who's a bean counter, and I say that with love in my heart, how can they have the technical expertise to assess someone who is handling a lot of equipment? How would I begin to, since the IT department is within my department, evaluate them? But that happens all the time. Now me, since I'm a control freak, as are the smart people with their careers, you want to make sure that you're putting forward, these were the key achievement areas I agreed to meet or exceed, and I'm sitting on the bench to move my career to here, and this is part of the plan, and this is how I aligned myself to meet or exceed the goals of the organization. You all with me? Careers aren't reactions. Careers are a plan. In top grading, we are looking to where you optimized your skills. When they hired you, they were harvesting you like they would a crop to say, ooh, I'm going to gather myself some of these skills and some of these skills and some of these skills so I can run my company. Where do you fit? How do I optimize you? They don't see a person, they just see skills. They just see revenue centers or expense centers. You have to shift and think that way too. Overall, you customize your resume. If you were to take just 2 ideas away tonight, and in the future, this is all you have to know. Every single time you reach out to somebody with your resume, it needs to be customized. You have so much talent. You cannot present what you do the same way to everybody. As a kid, you never went to your mom with the same approach you went to your dad. I guarantee it. Same rules here apply when you go to employers. The next thing I need you to remember is you have an electronic bucket that everything is in. And now you get to bring things out in a classification way because it's all so organized for you. You get to just take that out and put it in any way, shape, or form. It's like having your closet color coordinated and being able to go in and pull out whatever you need whenever you need it. Or being able to go in your shop to the toolbox and open the drawer that has all the wrenches in neatly organized or all the screwdrivers neatly organized and knowing exactly where to pick up the correct tool. That's the same thing you have here. Organizing the work samples is another way to build the portfolio, but it's a way to organize your head for what you need to do. Let's take a tour right now through what the menus look like. This will be a fast drive-by. When you get the login, you're going to be given a link. You'll follow the link. It'll give you the oat. You'll fill out the oat. You'll click send. We'll send you back name and password. You will, of course, save your password in a safe place. Promise me. Then you'll come back and log in with your secret password. We ask you one thing. Please be sure you are working from the most updated browser. We don't care which browser, but when you're working on it, it needs to be the most current. That's all we ask. This is the master menu. Pretty straightforward. It's in the same order of all the stuff we've been talking about. Occupations. Imagine that. Anytime you want to add, subtract, put a work sample in, or anything that relates to an occupation, click on that. You with me? Same thing goes for education. Anytime you need to update something with education, add a work sample related to education. Same thing with training. You're sitting in here, you picked up a certificate that is industry related. Food service, a specialty, forklift driver, something that holds a certification specialty. Go to training. All of you sitting here with any military experience, quantify it through here. We have all the crosswalks where you can log in all your MOSs. Groups, and we're going to take a tour of that in specifics, because groups is where you add your professional groups, campus activities, community activities. Are you all with me on this? It's kind of like, and all other things that you don't know where they go. They're under groups and activities. Skill analysis. We'll take a tour through skill analysis because that's the skill harvest. Every occupation you've had, we went in and we plucked out from here, from here, from here, from every occupation you've logged, your skills. Can you imagine it all being in one place? You can go and look at samples or add samples that way. Don't have time to log it some other way? You say, okay, I got them all on this USB drive and I'm putting them in and I'm putting them in now. Just go to samples. Want to do another gap analysis? Right there. Time to create a resume? Easy peasy. Right there. It's a pretty self-forward driven menu. Let's talk about groups. You can see on the menu on the left-hand side, we're in groups. You get a drop-down, academic group, activity, service organization, or professional. Look, we got a great programming team. They're used to working with me. Keep it simple so I don't get confused. So the drop-down is choose the type of organization, give me the position, give me the name of the group and the supervisor, and then fill it out. Whenever you are asked to give an hour and a wage, it helps. It especially helps on the gap analysis because it quantifies at what level you are employable. So the more information you share, the better your results. Obviously, if you are with an organization where you're not being paid, NA is the correct answer. When you are making a note here, it might be you making a note on a time window. It might be you making a note about you've got the request out for work samples. Anything that's going to jog your memory. It's a tool that's here to work for you. A reminder. Your work samples cannot be larger than 4 meg, okay, per work sample. We will take these types. an Adobe PDF, a JPEG, a GIF, PNG, and also a doc file, okay? Microsoft Word doc files. And so that gives you the file formats that are easy to upload. Our goal is to be able to take some video and WAV files by spring. Right now we are working to see what we can do to get those compressed so that we know exactly how big a file type we can take. I say we, I just request, they work the miracles. Okay? Questions? When you add, here's Jason, he wants to add his ServSafe certificate. He's showing a transferable skill because he's in nursing. He is not in food service, okay? His date is up there. He clicks update. Note here, he is relating it to the aid station. He's got the abbreviation and when he was in Afghanistan. He's linking it to where that service was that he acquired it. And you can see he successfully uploaded it because you can view the sample. He could actually make it larger. He could remove it or leave it there. He's got it linked to this item. If he wants to cross-link it to another, he can. You all with me? Relatively easy. Oh, this is my favorite. This is his shopping list of skills. And you're going, okay, active learning, got that. We come down, social perceptiveness, we would expect. We come down, systems evaluation, equipment, we're good. Troubleshooting, yeah, we're good. And you'll see across abilities, skills, knowledge, work activities, tools, technologies. Did you know what you do is classified so easily? No clue, huh? We can look at you and organize everything you do into these categories. I make my kids crazy. They get chore lists in measurable language. I drive them nuts. Let's take a look here with work activities. Adjust welding equipment. Analyze test data. Confer with customer representatives. He's a pretty interesting guy when you look at this. You guys will be able to produce the same kind of list. Can you imagine how interesting you are? Because now you should be able to go through and shop a list like this and tag a work sample to each one. Identify, ooh, I might want to talk about this on my resume. Ooh, am I really doing this? Here's the tool list. I look at this and I go, he'd be interesting at a party, wouldn't he? Because we got welding torches and we got IV pumps. That scares me to put those two together, but we won't tell Jason this, okay? But you've got really quite an interesting skill set. He's easily employable. And what's fun about Jason is he's great when we start to put competencies and then rare talents. Plus you combine what he's got in terms of his military experience. He's a total pleasure. Take a look at, and then you come through with his Informed EMS Field Guide. And what we have here under technologies are the software and technology suites he's familiar with. And in the case of working with certain types of employers, they are looking to know what software packages you're familiar with. And we have the lookups built in. And if you see something that's not there, you can add it. I know, you'd rather do this all by hand, and you're terribly disappointed to have it all in one place. I get it. Okay. And then you can add anything by new occupations. And so now, let's go through and build these out in a step-by-step. So we've got with the new occupation information, we're going to show you what it is to put the sample in. So here we are with Jason, and he's at the Illinois National Guard station. Notice he's got his wage. Poor guy doesn't get paid much. It's bi-monthly. There's the date. He's adding a sample. We're going to walk you through the adding of a sample. So he's got his basic information in. He's noting it as a medic. We'll click update.
Oops.
Oop. And when, you're okay, you can stay there. And when he came in with that data, this was his protocol for setting himself up on anything else he wants to put in. You're the same way. When you want to add a sample, you simply come in under samples, give the title of what you want to attach it to, or even just the general title. So if you're saying, okay, I am sitting here with, and you title it, put it in. If you can attach it to an occupation, it's ideal. Filling that part in and click update, and you've got it populated in. Let's review. The steps on the software, if I were sitting here wanting to know where do I start first, the best use of your time in preparation before you go near the software is to give yourself an hour. If you can afford 2, it's better. And say, I need to get my work samples together. And to do that, I would first go to page 109 in the book, click my smartphone, or burn my fingers on the keyboard to the website, and I would download the templates. And then I would do 2 things. I would first get myself that index that I could get that would give me that file organization as one to go, whew, this could help me. Then the next thing I would do is download the planning tool. And then I would start to write down and map every single, I just start at the top of the pile and start going, well, this would cross over, and I'd mark every single sample I could on my list. Then I would reverse engineer based on every occupation. Well, these are the skills I'm aware of for the existing occupations. And then I would do it for the target occupation, because that's at least going to give me a rough map. Then, because between now and the next time I get together, then I would sit there and go, who do I have to make contact with to get a letter to document my soft skills? Who do I have to reach out to and request documentation of my leadership or my soft skills? Then I'd thumb through the book and go, okay, how do I write that letter? And I'd write a couple letters and get those moving. Because the holidays coming up, that's always going to get in the way. And I get that going. And then I would try and intersect here pretty close to that next meeting, so that by the time I start into the little login process, I'm holding my magic USB drive in my hot hand so that I can upload whatever I can gently in the process. Because you can access this software from any place you can get an internet connection, any place, and upload whatever you need to. And that's the good news. You don't have to be sitting here or there. Any place you can get to the internet. So.
But remember, we're starting in 2 weeks. So I want you sitting here.
Oh yes, you have to be here. You didn't hear me say that.
Okay.
So what questions do you folks have for us about career portfolios? You obviously know we're passionate. You know that we've cared about portfolios for a long time. And I have both industry partners as well as academic partners as well as government partners who've been working with us on this. So somebody besides the 2 of us advocates the importance. Let us know how we can help. It'd be my pleasure to answer any questions you might have.
Oh, go ahead.
What about, I was noticing, and I think it's a great tool, but what about like when stuff that's, I know awards, certificates, and degrees aren't, but what about it is documentation that becomes obsolete or?
Good question. When is a work sample too old?
Yeah.
That's why you put everything into a central place and you pull out and customize your portfolio for the target. You are always responding to the target position, so that if we know that this is a position focusing on X, you would always correctly put your most current demonstration of skills. So if something is dated and old, it wouldn't necessarily be used. However, there are times that there may be a time when you would need an older work sample if someone is looking for you to demonstrate progression. And as we see more and more interest in top grading, there are times they want you to be able to show progression in a career choice. But that's an excellent question.
Okay. Well, I'd like to really thank Anna for being here tonight. I think you could see if we were a weekend class and had a weekend format, she could fill the whole Saturday with her knowledge.
Moment to work samples is community service. Everybody tends to either blow off or step aside and not know what to do with their community service because, you know, you have a tender heart, you do things in the community because it makes you feel good and you want to, not realizing that that is an excellent arena for quantifying skills. You should, as you are sitting here trying to gain experience in your field, actually put a plan together and contract in your vertical and say, I'm working on my accounting skills. I'd like to volunteer with your organization and contract for 40 to 60 hours, giving you so many a week, and do something along these lines for you, and I'm looking in return for a letter of documentation. And then you have something quantifiable to take to an employer. Or you have something quantifiable that will give you not only those technical skills being documented, but some of the warm fuzzy skills of what you've been able to do that contributes back economically in the community. Am I making sense here along those lines? Especially as we go into these times of year. Of course, in my opinion, it's always the right time of year, but then I'm soft about these things. But we'll come back and we'll talk, because you can actually acquire your technical skills, but it's a great place to shop for your transferable skills. Soft skills, leadership skills in particular. Community service is also a place, besides leadership skills, I want you to be aware that we will talk about where does your military service go, because there's a very prominent place for that. We have built into the software the crosswalks so that your military and civilian skills can talk the same language and everybody can understand each other. Even when you know military speak, we know the civilians don't always understand that, so we have to decode it for them, and you can get that going. Professional memberships. Why would I put professional memberships in here? 2 reasons.
I'll go with first.
Tell them.
It shows your employer, when you have a professional membership, that you're looking at the position you're in as a career, not just a job. It shows that you're investing in this area, that you have interest in this area, and the professional memberships are your proof for that kind of accountability.
It also is a great way, after you've exhausted out their line item on the budget for how much they can give you for pay, to turn around and say, now that you've given me, and I realize this, what you can on salary, I'd like you to pay for my professional memberships and conference attendance on professional development. And it gives you some soft benefits to go on to negotiate because you've got evidence and proof of history of having been a member of an organization and having been active in that organization. So it's a whole lot easier having shown them the pattern, even if it was as a student member, to stepping it up than it is to go from ground zero and say, well, I need to be a member of this and I need to be a member of that, because they're going to turn around and say, well, why weren't you before? Everybody with me? Degrees, certificates, awards, and references. Why would I put an award in that's 5, 10, or 15 years old? The difference between a portfolio being a scrapbook and being a portfolio is purpose. Presentation that says, oh, take a look at me. Here are my goals and my philosophy and my structured way for presenting to you my competencies and how this all fits into a plan, is the ability to show you up here, here's my management philosophy, and then here's my professional goals. Now these are the things I want to achieve in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but also here are the 2 or 3 components that align to the company I'm targeting. So if you're sitting here and you're applying to 3 different organizations, I would expect you have customized your personal goals to align to the direction that company may be going. So if you're here in the greater Champaign-Urbana area and you say, I'm going to go to work for, or you are in the state of Illinois and I'm going to go to work for, then you should be looking up the annual report, the mission and goals of that organization, and if sustainability has come up, in other words, they're interested in green and saving energy, then you better have a professional development goal that aligns to that. The other thing you better take a look to is if cost control or revenue progression is in there, you need to also be looking at those same things. Every single organization is going to evaluate you on how well you grow leadership. How well are you growing the leaders around you? The difference between being at the bottom of the food chain and moving your way up is, are you growing leaders, making the company money, saving the company money, and improving the guest or client relationship? And you need to be demonstrating this in your work samples and demonstrating this in your goals and philosophy as you talk to these points.
And as we go through this, we're going to look at these individually, but I want you to think about when we're looking at the work samples, when we're looking at community service professional memberships, if you do not have all of this at the present time, be thinking about how could I obtain this, or what else do I have that might be relevant that would be of value to include in a work sample. So while we show you some samples here, think about how you can individualize this to your particular situation, because everybody has work that is of value, and we'll be talking about those soft skills. So don't panic right away and say, oh, I don't have good examples of work skills.
But we will
Yes,
let you
do.
panic. It's okay. No, we're kidding. Well, I think what Diana is also trying to get you to realize is, stop and take a look for a moment. You may be going into a field that you're going, well, I can't really relate the fact that I've come out of manufacturing and now I am going totally across the board and I'm now going into being a medical tech. They're not related. How do I relate those skills? Well, 2 things. 1, we'll show you in the software how you literally can go side by side and compare skills and go, oh, it's a transferable skill in terms of financial analysis to financial analysis. Oh, the soft skills of dealing with people here is the same as dealing with people there. We'll talk about what's transferable. And I think that's what we're really saying. But also understanding strategically where the building blocks are. I supervise so many people here. Supervision of staff is the supervision of staff. And it works over here. One of the things we also have that we're going to talk to is going to be, as we come down this list, from resume. And I'm going to come back in a moment.
So with that being said, I would like to introduce to you a person that I've admired for years with all the books that she's authored and her knowledge, and also a good friend and a co-author of the book that I handed out last week, Anna Graf Williams. And Anna is very, very knowledgeable about the workforce, about working with employers, about what you need to know to put resumes together. So listen closely to some of the skills that she identifies that you need to identify for yourself. Also some of the tips that she gives you that employers are looking for. Because, you know, anytime we pick up a resume book, it says something a little bit different. But I can tell you, Anna is out there in the fields working with professionals day in and day out, so she gets the up-close insights and facts. And we also appreciate her working with me so that we could have the ability, with the grant money I receive, to get the books and get the resume program that you will have. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Well, let's start at the beginning. We're going to spend time today talking about career portfolios. So the first thing we're going to do is the big picture on career portfolios. Then we're going to progress through work samples, because work samples are kind of the center of the universe as you go about getting everything put together, whether we're going to do a hard copy portfolio or an electronic portfolio. The next thing we'll take a look at is actually the how-tos inside the software. Now, we are working with Diana Wyatt as a co-author on this project for the knowledge that she brings to us from the industry partners that she's reached out to, and because of the number of you who already have some industry relationships. She brings to us a research base that has allowed us to link into some specialty areas like how do you use your industry experience to get life skill credit at a university, which I know several of you have reached out to do that. And if you haven't done it now, it may turn around to be something you choose to do in 5 or 10 years as you go out advancing your career. You actually have a chapter in your books that gives you the framework for doing that. So as you go forward, you're going to find, when you look through creating your career portfolio at a glance guide for professionals, all the how-tos for putting together a portfolio. This is kind of like the recipe book. Now, we have a section in there on how to do a bio. We have a section in there on resumes. And Diana has explained to you very clearly, for every color there is in the rainbow, that's how many opinions times 10 there are on resumes. I don't care what you want to do with your resume. All you have to understand is you need to customize it every time you target an employer. Every single time. And you have to understand that if you're wise, it's going to represent your competencies and your skills when you go about giving it to someone for your performance appraisals as well. There are formats for military and government resumes, and there are formats for chronological and anything else you want. But you just have to relax and understand that you can always look those pieces up, but if it doesn't accurately represent who you are, it's not going to do you any good. Questions are fair game. We'll try not to be boring. So we'll go through and give you just a few of the reasons why you use a portfolio. A new job, well, that's a give me, right? Everybody's with me on that. Coming in and using it for a promotion is the next thing. Unless, of course, you're all expecting to stay in the same position forever. Any of you? None of you? Good. The other thing you have to realize is after you've gone through new job, promotion, you need to be anticipating that you're going to have performance appraisals along the way. And industry has changed very much in the last 3 to 5 years how they do that, and they're using top grading. So they're out here and you thought, oh, when I got out of school, I got out of being graded. Sorry. They're going to take a look at you and they're going to say, did you have a plan for progressing your career? Or did you just react to what was going on around you? And they actually have a very scheduled rubrics, a very scheduled schema. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, they're going to look and say, do you have a plan for advancing your career? Portfolios are that planning tool that represents that, but it's also something you put in your head. It's like, oh wow, I did all this. And we'll talk a little bit about how that organizes. And then, of course, as we talked about, the structure for earning college credit.
And I know all of you are aware of the structure for college credit for universities, but there is the one chapter in here that will give you additional ideas on how to identify your experiential knowledge and be able to take that knowledge and incorporate that in your portfolio. So the portfolio we're talking about more or less is a lifetime tool. It's a self-assessment tool that be able to see this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be, and this is where I want to be. And again, it helps with the planning. We have many, many resources and worksheets within the book that will help you assess yourself and also help you in compiling your tools for the portfolio. So the career transition tool, I know many of you are in the phase where you're leaving one particular career, transferring to another, whether it's your choice or you're doing this because of a downsizing, right-sizing, business closure. This portfolio is going to help you within that transition. So it's an investment in you, it's all about you, and as we discuss some of the tools within the portfolio, think about how this impacts me as an individual and how will this work for me.
It's also your way of controlling your life. I'm a control freak, so I kind of like to control my own destiny. And things have changed in the workforce. It used to be employers would put before you things that would guide your professional development. It's significantly changed in the last 5 to 7 years, let alone where we are these last 3 economically, where you are responsible for your own professional development. The structure for a career portfolio that we put before you is something that we have actually had in place now for well over 17 years. In our work with the Department of Labor and with large Fortune 500 companies as well as smaller organizations, the difference between a scrapbook, which is like all the nice things I've done, and being able to do an award that shows citizenship, achievement, leadership is always appropriate. They don't age out. Your character should not have changed in the 10 or 15 years from when you first earned that particular award. Now, degrees, you worked hard to earn them. They're not heavy to carry, and they can't take them away from you. I would make sure I put that proof right there. References, and we'll show you these here momentarily. Make sure that on the references, especially in this day of top grading, and this is your great opportunity, We have come through an era over the last 10 years where a reference, all they can do for you is have the HR department say, oh, Mary Smith worked here from this date to this date and she left in good standing. That's not a reference. We need a reference who can address your character, your traits, your abilities. It will be your job to get the permission of that individual to talk to those details. So when you put a reference list forward, you need to also put a tagline on the bottom that addresses what can they talk about. They can address my leadership skills from 2008 to 2011. They can talk about my, and fill in the blank. Let's take them on a tour and show them.
Also with this, you want to educate your references by supplying them with your resume and any documentation that's relevant to what they're going to speak to so that they can make informed statements on here. We're going to show you some examples.
We'll take you through the walking tour and then we'll come back and bounce you through to the reference. So first let's look at management philosophy. The person we're going to tour you on is Jason Adams. He's in his mid-30s. He's a welder. He's an Army reservist here in the state of Illinois. And what's interesting about Jason is he's in pursuit of his RN for a trauma nurse. So here you have his 4 bullet points about his management philosophy. Trust me, took him a lot longer to think about this than it did to write the 4 sentences. In your book, you get the how-tos. We even go so far as to say it won't hurt you to get a friend or an enemy who will tell you the truth and give you some feedback. You can't sit and do this in a vacuum. And he talks to the point of what he believes. This is his personal mission statement, his thoughts on the industry, and what he believes about the patient. So, and we can go on, but this is for you to explore. Now let's take a look at, as you go through the big picture here, the bio. And there are several different formats. You can have a short, a medium, and a large bio. Trust me, when the HR department does your bio, it never quite sounds like you. I'm back to being this control freak. I like to write my own. And so you would want to do the same. But he gives, this is a brief one, short and sweet, overview of background, key points, educational highlights, and then what he wants his portfolio to show somebody as he keys through this when he shares these details. Same thing for you. Your book talks to the different formats of doing that bio. Okay? Professional goals. Remember, your core plus whatever you're customizing to your target. Gone are the days